The story begins inside a high-difficulty dungeon where a warrior and his party are facing the wingless dragon, Sibarumus. The dragon breathes fire at the warriors, and their tank wonders if his defense skills can withstand the attack. Suddenly, he notices something unexpected: a goblin standing in front of the dragon. The dragon attacks, but the goblin dodges and kills it with a single blow, leaving only the dragon's lower half. The warrior and his team are shocked. They cannot believe a goblin crushed the dragon in one attack. They wonder if it is a summoned creature. Then, the tank points out a man laughing on a hill. He is the one who summoned the goblin. Before this moment, the protagonist Cheol Kim was working at a construction site, carrying bags. He thought of himself as nothing more than a goblin, someone meant to remain at the bottom. In his mind, no matter how hard a goblin worked, it could never rise above being low level. While some people struck it rich overnight, he felt he could never escape his place. Cheol overheard workers talking about Mr. Che, who had been skipping work to play Heaven's Door, a full dive VR game. Rumor had it he had gained a hidden class, making him wealthy through the game. Cheol thought about how realistic Heaven's Door was, how expensive the equipment had become, and how internet cafes across the country were switching to keep up with the trend. The game had become a way to earn real money, turning into a true game changer. Inside the game, Cheol mined ores for money, grumbling about his situation. After hours of grinding, he found a rare healing crystal worth 300,000 won. Just as he was celebrating, a woman appeared. She introduced herself as Catherine Lee, a level 39 magician. Her party needed his mining skills to break through a blocked path in a dungeon. Though Cheol hesitated, worried about his low level, she convinced him to join. Her party promised to protect him while he mined ores. At first, everything seemed fine. Catherine and her party members displayed incredible strength. Cheol admired Catherine's power and even thought his romance route might be starting. But soon, he realized they looked down on him. They mocked him for being useless in battle and only good for mining. When Cheol broke through a wall and revealed a hidden dungeon, they turned on him. One of the party members attacked him from behind, revealing they had known about the hidden dungeon all along. They only used him to gain access. When Cheol woke up, he found himself alive because his expensive healing crystal had shattered, reviving him. Furious, he realized his 300,000 won item was gone. Looking deeper into the dungeon, he decided not to back down. He vowed to ruin the party that betrayed him. Inside the hidden dungeon, there was a huge statue of a goblin sitting on the throne. Later, he discovered the dead body of the dwarf from earlier. Soon, he witnessed the betrayers being slaughtered by Geiger, a level 80 monster. Terrified, Cheol thought about the dangers of Heaven's Door. Unlike normal games, the pain and trauma felt real. Dying to a higher level monster could even cause brain damage or permanent death. Catherine begged him for help, but Cheol, knowing he was too weak, chose to run. As he fled, a strange notification appeared. It said that the Goblin Lord felt kinship with him due to his weak and cowardly nature. Cheol grew angry. He hated being seen as weak, both in real life and in the game. Still, another notification appeared, offering him a hidden class Goblin Summoner. He tried to reject it, but the system promoted him anyway. When the level 80 monster cornered him, Cheol had no choice but to summon a goblin. At first, he thought it was useless and planned to use it as bait to escape. But then, the goblin stunned him by killing the level 80 monster in a single strike. Cheol gained massive experience, unlocked a new skill, and his summoned goblin instantly reached its maximum level. This was the beginning of Cheol Kim's journey as the summoner of the level 9999 goblin. Back in the real world, Catherine screamed in pain as she lay in her room. Her bodyguard rushed to her side, pulled off her VR headset, and realized what had happened. She had suffered a traumatic shock inside Heaven's Door with no chance of recovery. In the game, this was known as permanent retirement. Meanwhile, inside Heaven's Door, Cheol Kim's goblin went on a rampage, killing monsters across the dungeon. As the goblin fought, Cheol collected mana stones, struggling to carry them all. He thought about how the hidden dungeon had technically been cleared when he defeated Geiger, but since his former party members were dead, there was no way to leave alone except by dying. Yet the goblin had wiped out the entire area, allowing him to level up to 31. Curiously, he couldn't see any stats or information about the goblin he had summoned. It made no sense that such a weak-looking monster could be this powerful. Still, he decided to enjoy it while it lasted. With this overpowered goblin by his side, he believed his days of endless mining were over. Reaching the top of Heaven's Door no longer felt like a dream. Later at the bank, a clerk called out his number, player 36, and calculated his dungeon rewards. She deposited 97,000 won into his account. Cheol was amazed that game items could be traded for real money through a regular bank. He asked her to transfer the funds to another account and mentioned that he also wanted to sell Geiger's skin and heart. Hearing this, The clerk was shocked and ran to her manager. The branch manager greeted Cheol and explained that his items were worth far more than he realized. Geiger's skin and heart were valued at 230 million won. Cheol was stunned. With that money, he could finally pay off part of his massive debt. Returning to the game, he summoned his goblin again, smiling proudly. He thanked it for helping him and called it his awesome little companion. But when he tried to unsummon it while walking through town, he realized he couldn't. People mocked him, saying he looked like his goblin and laughing as they passed. The goblin accidentally bumped into another player named Patton, a member of the Everton Guild who called himself the Destroyer. Onlookers whispered nervously about him, saying he was dangerous. Cheol tried to explain that the goblin wasn't hostile, but Patton attacked first. The goblin retaliated instantly, killing him with one strike. Notifications appeared, showing that player kill mode was active to prevent excessive damage from high-level users. The crowd gasped as Patton lay defeated. People murmured that a goblin had just killed a player. Before Cheol could react, another group from the Everton Guild appeared. Their leader, Unioke the Shadow, an assassin, vowed to avenge Patton. He was joined by an archer named Jihayon the Deadly, and two other assassins. Cheol panicked. He knew his goblin could win, but killing too many players could cause trouble. He tried to calm the situation, saying they shouldn't gang up on a low-level monster, but the goblin suddenly threw a pebble that instantly killed one of the assassins. The others attacked, forcing Cheol to run. While fleeing, an old man called out to him, telling him to hide inside a nearby building. Cheol ran in, only for the old man to trick him and lock him inside. He then ran outside scared, because the old man was also the member of the guild. A system message appeared. The Goblin Lord marvels at your shameless tactic of deceiving your enemy. You have earned 1 goblin point. Cheol was irritated. First, the system called him cowardly, and now it called him shameless. He shouted in frustration, blaming the world for making him this way. He swore he wouldn't be ignored anymore. Together with his goblin, he decided to destroy the Everton Guild. The guild members chased him across rooftops. The archer told Yoon Hyuk not to waste time on them, but he warned her not to underestimate the goblin, since it had easily killed Patton. Then, a trickster named Sangreal, the old man from before, fell from the sky defeated. Then the goblin appeared behind Yoon Hyuk. He struck the goblin, but dealt 0 damage. He was stunned. The goblin's defense was impenetrable. The goblin attacked back. Jihayon saved Yoon Hyuk temporarily with her arrow, which deflected the attack, shouting for him to focus. He activated his powerful skill, Brutality, which increased his critical hit rate but slowed his movement. Jihayon used her own ability, Gale Arrow, to remove his speed penalty, and said let's one-shot him, and together they launched a coordinated strike. But when the attacks landed, the goblin remained unharmed. The goblin grinned and countered, killing Unioke in a single hit. Jihayon froze in shock as smoke filled the air. Through it, Cheol appeared, saying mockingly, "You were gonna one-shot who? Maybe reach max level first, then we can talk." Jihayon stared at him, realizing the truth. This wasn't an ordinary monster. The goblin was his summon. Jihayon asked how a goblin could possibly have this much power. Their guild leader was one of the strongest fighters. Cheol replied angrily, saying that was not the point. What mattered was that he was furious. Jihayon asked what he wanted and what they had even done to him. Cheol shot back that it was their fault since they tempted him first. Shocked, she called him a pervert and tried to back away, but he clarified that it was not what she thought. He reminded her that they attacked him first, and that both he and his goblin just got fired up in response. She screamed again, mocking his words, while Cheol thought to himself that if anyone saw this, they would mistake him for the villain. He asked his goblin to silence her for a moment, but her screams had already drawn the attention of other players. A crowd gathered, pointing in his direction. Realizing the situation was getting out of hand, Cheol ordered his goblin to stop and let her go. The crowd misinterpreted everything. Believing the goblin was about to assault the woman, they shouted in horror, claiming the goblin had not only destroyed the Everton Guild, but was now trying to harm a helpless woman. Cheol panicked, thinking he was doomed. All he had wanted was to teach the Everton Guild a lesson, and now he had nowhere to run. Then, someone in the crowd pointed out that he had challenged the goblin to release her. Others noticed his weak noob gear, but admired his courage for standing up to such a terrifying monster. Cheol cried out for the goblin to stop, pretending he was fighting against it. The crowd misunderstood and began cheering, believing he was risking his life to protect the woman. In his imagination, Cheol pictured himself as a hero saving a damsel in distress. He played along, demanding that the goblin release her and declaring that its days of evil were over. The woman quickly promised she would not reveal his secret about controlling the goblin, begging for her life. Cheol agreed and pretended to use a high-level skill, chaining the goblin and dragging it out of the town. The onlookers marveled, thinking he had used a rare skill called Shackles of Light. He then pretended to use another ability, feed the goblin, tossing a sausage outside the gate. The goblin chased after it, and Cheol shouted for the gates to be shut. The crowd erupted in cheers, convinced he had defeated and banished the monster. Inside, Cheol thought to himself what a close call it was. Later, Ji-yeon admitted that she was the only one who knew about his connection with the goblin. She promised to keep it secret. Cheol threatened her, saying if she broke that promise, he would kill her repeatedly at the Pascal Sanctuary every time she is resurrected, scaring her. That night, lying on his bed, Cheol reflected that doing something good had unexpected benefits. He remembered a past moment when he had been powerless to save someone, vowing that with his strength now, he would not make the same mistake. Then, he recalled that the Goblin Lord had granted him a Goblin Point. A new skill shop appeared, but most options were locked. He could only learn one basic ability, which turned out to be a summoning skill. When he tested it, the Goblin appeared again, making noise. A person knocked on his door, asking if he was alright. Cheol brushed them off, then apologized to the Goblin, saying life was hard for both of them. At the tavern, members of the Everton Guild were having a meeting. Cheol entered. They thanked him for saving Ji-yeon. Despite their earlier attack on him, their guild leader admitted they owed him a debt. Cheol revealed his true reason. He wanted their help moving to the next region, since he was already level 30 and gaining little experience in the beginner's area. The guild explained that the next area, Jordnal, could only be reached by clearing a raid dungeon. An old man, known as Sungriel the Trickster, explained that raid dungeons were far more difficult than open field dungeons, only opening once a month. Unfortunately, the last raid had been missed because of the goblin incident, meaning they were stuck in the beginner's region for another month. Cheol was furious. He had just made over 200 million won from high-level monster materials and knew his goblin could clear stronger dungeons to make him even richer. He grabbed the guild leader, demanding another way out, but there was none. Then, suddenly, Cheol and the Everton Guild received a notification. Against all odds, the raid dungeon had opened again. Cheol was shocked. It had spawned far earlier than expected. The Everton Guild gathered at the gate of the newly opened dungeon. The guild leader asked how many people had already gone inside. The old man, known as the Trickster, replied that none had entered. He assumed that all the players who had been in town for the raid yesterday had already cleared it and moved on to the next region. The leader realized that meant their guild was the only one left to challenge the dungeon. At that moment, Cheol Kim spoke from behind, accusing them of bluffing. He said he should have known when they claimed the raid spawned only once a month. He had been lied to and tricked again. Ji-yeon, the woman from the guild, quickly told him it was all a misunderstanding. The leader brushed it off and said they were heading inside regardless. He asked if Cheol was coming with them. Cheol replied that he would not let them take all the rewards for themselves. Before entering, the leader explained that the boss chamber was a single room. As soon as they entered, they would face the raid boss. The dungeon was not much higher in level than they were, so he did not expect fatal damage, but warned everyone to stay cautious. Patton reminded them that even if their guild master was away, the rest of the Everton Guild was still strong enough to clear the dungeon. Saying that, the members rushed inside. Cheol, before going in, told his goblin to stay put until he called for it. He remembered being backstabbed last time and swore not to let anyone take advantage of him again. He still had the superior healing stone, which mysteriously remained with him even after use. With that reassurance, he ran into the dungeon. Inside, the boss appeared before them, a massive iron giant level 40. The Everton Guild members panicked and tried to flee, but it was revealed that they had stumbled into a hidden dungeon called the Nest of the Iron Giant. The leader shouted at the Trickster, accusing him of deceiving them, but the Trickster yelled back for everyone to run. Ji-yeon shouted to Cheol, telling him not to stand and just run away. Cheol replied that she must be joking. He mocked them for jumping into a hidden dungeon only to try and escape, reminding them that hidden dungeons contained the best rewards. The guild protested, saying the Iron Giant was too high leveled, and real-life injuries could follow if they were hit. Cheol dismissed their fears, saying the difference was only 10 levels. At worst, they would spit blood and collapse. To him, the rewards were worth the risk. He declared he would take every reward for himself, and summoned his goblin with assemble. But strangely, the goblin stared off into the sky, ignoring his call. In the next instant, the Iron Giant struck him down in one blow. Cheol was killed instantly. The guild tried to escape, but the dungeon portal closed. Yunhyok panicked, saying that only raid dungeon portals closed this quickly. The Trickster realized with horror that normal dungeons could sometimes warp into hidden dungeons, and he had overlooked the fact that raid dungeons could do the same. Now they were trapped with no way out. In real life, Cheol coughed blood, shocked at being one-shotted despite being over level 30. He realized he had forgotten to use his stat points, and wondered why he could not summon his goblin now. He fumed at the wasted opportunity, calling hidden dungeons a goldmine. Meanwhile, the Everton Guild prepared to fight. The guild leader shouted for them to assemble. Ji-yeon used her skill Tailwind Arrow, doubling the speed of nearby allies. The Trickster explained that their two fastest assassins would now search for the enemy's weak points, while Jihyun provided support. No matter how sturdy the monster, it had to have a weakness somewhere. Together, the assassins found and attacked the giant's vulnerable spot, but the damage was too small. The guild leader then used a heavy strike, finally dealing significant damage and causing the iron giant to bleed, losing 1800 HP. He realized that the monster could be hurt, but only by heavier blows. Enraged, the iron giant activated its skill disdain for the weak, becoming immune to attacks that dealt less than 5% of its total HP. Patton admitted that only the leader could do that kind of damage. The trickster corrected him, saying someone else could unleash even greater attacks. It was the archer, Jihyun. She prepared Deadly Blow Strike, a skill that drained her HP to increase her attack power. Patton stepped forward, activating War Cry to draw the boss's attention, tanking its blows to give Jihyun time. The trickster supported with Pain Split, sharing incoming damage between himself and a party member. Cheol, watching from the sidelines, was shocked at their coordination. Despite being low levels without hidden classes, they fought with incredible synergy. The guild leader ordered the assassins to use Vital Severance, a skill that had a chance to reduce enemy defense with each strike. Cheol thought to himself that this was what a real guild looked like, realizing they might actually kill the Iron Giant. But then, the monster shifted targets. Patton was confused as the notification revealed the Iron Giant had locked onto another player. The giant slammed its hand down, crushing the ground. Cheol, who had restored his HP with the healing stone, realized he could not sit back any longer. He told himself that the protagonist always makes a last-minute appearance. As the Iron Giant prepared its devastating ground pulverizer, which had already killed many guild members, the battlefield was chaos as several team members were thrown back by the force of the monster's attack. Patton stood severely injured, staring in shock at his fallen allies, before shouting at the monster in fury, demanding how it dared to harm them. Old Man Sangreal, the trickster, warned Patton not to lose focus, but Patton ignored him and unleashed his powerful skill, Giant Slash, charging at the steel monster with all his might. Sangreal used Pain Distribution to share Patton's damage, but ended up taking 450 CHP of damage himself. He muttered in pain and regret as his plan failed. Moments later, a system message appeared announcing the deaths of both Patton the Destroyer and the Trickster. Cheol froze in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. He shouted defensively, insisting it wasn't his fault, and that all he had done was revive. At that moment, Yoon Hyuk reappeared in a battle stance. He analysed the situation, explaining that monsters usually target healers and ranged fighters first. However, because of Patton's War Cry skill, the monster had focused on him. Cheol-Su's sudden resurrection disrupted the monster's targeting priority, causing it to refocus and wipe out the entire team. Jihyun nervously asked Yoon Hyuk if she should release her arrow. Her skill, Deadly Bow Strike, consumed her HP, and she was already down to 46%. Yoon Hyuk shouted for her to hold back, saying it could ruin their plan. The assassination team's passive skill was only stacked 3 out of 5 times, not enough to finish the monster in one blow. He promised to distract the monster and told Jihyun not to cancel her skill no matter what. Cheol tried to offer help, but Jihyun mocked him, calling him useless without his goblin. Her words cut deep, and Cheol wondered if her hatred was only because he was alone. He began blaming the others, thinking they were the weak ones who had stopped him from summoning his goblin. With a twisted smile, he thought about letting them all die. The steel giant charged at Jihyun next. Just as Yoon Hyuk predicted, Yoon Hyuk attacked with Unraveled Sword, dealing 920 damage, but the monster retaliated with a crushing strike. Yoon Hyuk barely dodged and attacked again, landing 2 more blows. After 3 full-powered strikes, the monster finally recognized him as its target, with its HP still at 22,460 out of 30,000. Yoon Hyuk taunted the monster and prepared to use Quick Evade, which granted 3 seconds of immunity. But a system warning appeared. He lacked enough mana to activate the skill. Horrified, he was struck directly and killed instantly. A message declared the death of Yoon Hyuk, the Shadow. His body collapsed at Cheol-Su's feet. Cheol-Su screamed, accusing his team of being weak. He regretted reviving himself at all, while Jihyun furiously blamed his resurrection for ruining everything. Their argument grew heated, with Jihyun saying she only needed 10 more seconds to win, and Cheol-Su yelling that he would rather see them all die than let them take the rewards without him. The steel giant roared and targeted Jihyun. She screamed that this wasn't the time for blame, and began charging her arrow, but Cheol-Su smirked, asking if she could move while charging. Jihyun panicked as Cheol-Su suddenly grabbed her, shouting that she said she needed 10 seconds. He sprinted with her at incredible speed, dodging the monster's strike and laughing maniacally. Jihyun stunned by his speed. Cheol-Su revealed he had invested all 26 of his unspent stat points into speed, making him fast enough to rival assassins. Meanwhile, he noticed he gained an extra goblin point and wondered if the Goblin Lord was mocking him. Ji-hyeon shouted that her arrow was ready, but Cheol-soo ignored her fear and demanded compensation for his blood and the healing stone he had used. The monster unleashed a massive area attack, scattering debris everywhere. Ji-hyeon struggled to aim, but Cheol-soo saw strange visions from his past instead of focusing. Suddenly, a rift opened, and a clawed hand tore through reality. It was his goblin. The terrifying creature entered. Cheol-soo yelled at it for being late, while Ji-hyeon was stunned, wondering if it had ripped through the dungeon itself, something that should have been impossible. Cheol-soo proudly activated Goblin Shield. As the monster prepared its final strike, he mocked it, saying, "Those are pretty bold last words for a hidden dungeon boss." He and Ji-hyeon declared that the climax of the battle had arrived. Ji-hyeon unleashed her ultimate skill, one shot death bow, fully charged, piercing through the steel giant. Cracks spread across its body before it collapsed, defeated. A system message confirmed they had cleared the hidden dungeon. Ji-hyeon cheered in disbelief that they had actually won. Another message announced her level had risen from 27 to 31. Cheol-soo's level increased from 31 to 34, and he jumped for joy, screaming in excitement and demanding to see his dungeon reward. A system message appeared, announcing that all party members who had fallen during the raid were revived upon the dungeon's completion. Yoon Hyuk asked if everyone was all right. Patton replied that he tasted blood, but confirmed he was fine. He expressed relief that they managed to defeat the monster, admitting that if its level had been just a little higher, they would have been in serious danger. Suddenly, someone pointed out that the old man, Sungreal the trickster, wasn't breathing. Another member brushed it off, saying if they smacked him hard enough, he would wake up. Yoon Hyuk then turned sternly toward Cheol-soo, Kim and Ji-hyeon, asking them to explain exactly what had just happened. But Cheol-soo was acting strangely, hugging all the loot that had dropped from the monster. He screamed hysterically, warning everyone not to come near him. Ji-hyeon hesitated and told the leader she didn't know how to explain what was wrong with Kim. Before the revival, a system message appeared before both of them. Cheol-soo was shocked to see that he had not fulfilled the requirements to unlock a hidden class. Ji-hyeon received the same result and was equally disappointed. Cheol-soo thought deeply, realizing that just as he received the Goblin class through the Goblin Lord's favor, there must be other conditions inside the dungeon to unlock hidden classes. He also considered that it might have been smarter to complete those conditions before defeating the boss, but he quickly dismissed the thought, shouting that he needed to gather all the loot before it was too late. Ji-hyeon yelled at him to stop, reminding him that everyone had contributed to the battle and the loot should be shared. But Kim screamed wildly, refusing to listen, clutching the rewards even tighter. Yoon Hyuk and Ji-hyeon watching Kim with mockery, wondering aloud if he was turning into Gollum with how he was obsessing over the loot. Kim defensively shouted that the items were precious to him. Yoon Hyuk calmly replied that although Kim had helped them twice, their primary goal was already complete. They wouldn't be greedy about extra loot. This surprised Kim, who hadn't expected such nobility. At that moment, Sungreal, the trickster, walked up and smacked Kim hard on the head. He scolded him, saying he had told Yoon Hyuk from the start that they should never have caused this much trouble. Kim flew into a rage, accusing the team of betraying him not once, but twice. But Yoon Hyuk responded calmly yet firmly, saying that removing Kim would not be difficult, and if they wanted to use force, they already would have. Then, he pointed at the bow Kim was holding. He explained that the weapon was a unique item, the Iron Giant's bow, and asked if Kim understood its value. Kim panicked, yelling that he wasn't even an archer and didn't know how to use it. Internally, he realized it was a class locked item, unable to be sold or used unless one was an archer. Still, Kim stubbornly declared that he wanted to keep it, arguing that everyone else already had unique items except him. Another member snapped at him, demanding he hand the bow over to Yoon Hyuk, the bringer of death. Kim smiled cunningly and agreed to give it up, but only if they gave him something in return. Yoon Hyuk was stunned, saying the bow couldn't be traded or sold, making it even more valuable. Kim laughed, mocking them, saying that sooner or later they would have to buy the bow from him if they wanted it. The old man looked at him in disgust, thinking Kim really did resemble his goblin. Nearby, Kim's goblin hid nervously behind rocks, anxious about Kim's dealings with the Everton team. Eventually, Kim handed the bow over to Yoon Hyuk, who commented on its heavy weight. Kim sarcastically thanked the team for the exchange. Yoon Hyuk, in turn, remarked that Kim had a real talent for making people hate him. When asked where he planned to go next, Kim smiled wickedly and said, "Isn't it obvious? I'm going somewhere you aren't." Yoon Hyuk called him twisted, but agreed it was a good idea. The team prepared to leave, while Ji-hyeon cast a curious glance at Kim before following the others. A system message confirmed that the hidden raid dungeon was complete. Kim reflected that while losing the unique bell was unfortunate, the thief's glove he received as a consumable was extremely valuable. It allowed him to steal one item from any character lower level than him, but more importantly, he had obtained high purity steel. Once a mining-focused player, he recognized its true value, while everyone else obsessed over unique weapons. None of them noticed the rare metal. Kim laughed joyfully, knowing he held the true prize. The next day, Kim arrived in Fjornal, a city in the Phoenix Hill Bazaar market area. Surrounded by high-level players in extravagant gear, he was filled with awe and envy. He wondered how much money they were making from the game. Then, in a sudden outburst, he declared that he could smell the sin of money in the air, but his excitement vanished when he remembered he needed to upgrade his gear. The painful memory of dying to a monster 9 levels lower haunted him. Just then, his goblin screamed for his attention. Annoyed, Kim warned it not to cause trouble in the village, but before he could continue, a massive monster appeared in front of him. Kim screamed in terror, demanding to know why a boss-level monster was in such a place. He ordered his goblin to protect him. A calm voice replied. A beautiful woman named Irene lounged atop the monster, asking if that goblin was really Kim's summoned creature. Stunned, Kim realized the monster was under her control. Irene explained that Michelle, the beast, was obedient in the village. Kim, however, grew more anxious. He sensed Irene's strength, thinking even powerful guilds like Everton wouldn't stand a chance against her. She gently asked Kim his name. He nervously replied, Kim Cheol, but Irene smiled and said she wasn't talking to him. She was asking the goblin. Surprised, Kim asked if she meant to name it. Irritated, he dismissed the idea, saying who would name an ugly goblin. Irene simply smiled, saying one-sided relationships were unstable. She pointed out that the goblin had instantly taken a defensive stance to protect Kim the moment it heard his command, even without being given a name. She hoped Kim wouldn't be too boring when they met again and bid him farewell, calling him Kim Cheol. Kim shouted sarcastically after her, insisting he didn't need her advice, claiming he and his goblin had no problems. Later, while shopping for gear, the blacksmith Humphrey mocked his outfit, calling it trash. Kim defended himself, saying that was why he came to buy armor. Humphrey showed him a set of sturdy metal armor priced at 350 gold. Kim realized decent defense was necessary, so he bought it. Humphrey mocked him further, saying it was perfect for idiots like him. Kim happily put it on, only to realize he couldn't move because of its weight. Furious, he tried to sell it back, but Humphrey only offered 30 gold, insulting the armor as garbage. Suddenly, Kim noticed a golden exclamation mark above Humphrey's head. Humphrey panicked, realizing his special blacksmith hammer was missing. He explained it was inside the underground waterway dungeon and begged Kim to retrieve it. A system message appeared, notifying Kim of the quest, Humphrey's Troubles, with the reward being the ability to refine materials into armor. Excited, Kim accepted. He realized his high-purity steel could be turned into powerful equipment. Standing at the dungeon entrance, he boasted that other party members would only slow him down. He would clear it alone in under 30 minutes. But another system message shocked him. The quest would fail if Humphrey died. Kim turned in disbelief to see Humphrey standing right behind him, yelling at him to hurry and retrieve his hammer. Kim blinked in confusion, recalling the notification he had received earlier. His face tightened in worry. If he dies, the quest fails. Now I have to drag around a level 13 burden, an unexpected variable. He thought to himself, no need to keep pace with him. I'll just outrun him and finish the job first. I'm maxed out in agility, so I can rush straight to the boss and ignore the trash mobs. But before he could finish that thought, Kim froze in shock. A new notification popped up. The blacksmith was already deep in battle, surrounded by wolf monsters, his health dropping fast. Kim shouted back, no, you dumb NPC, stop fighting and stay back. Realizing he was about to fail the quest, he called out to his goblin. In an instant, Goblin charged forward at blinding speed. Every strike dealt 99,9999 damage. When the last fell, Goblin twirled his hammer, flicked the blood off, and turned to Kim with his hideous grin. The blacksmith, still full of pride, declared, as expected, you're no match for mighty Humphrey. Acting as if he hadn't nearly died, Kim growled in frustration, but then Humphrey suddenly shouted at something in the distance and bolted off, leaving Kim clenching his teeth. Should I just kill him? Seriously, Kim quickly decided to change tactics. Goblin, from now on, wipe out every trash mob along the way. Deeper in the dungeon, Humphrey was facing rat monsters, raging about them stealing Phoenix Elbar's territory and his hammer. But before he could swing, Goblin appeared and slaughtered them effortlessly. Humphrey, still swinging blindly, shouted, take my ultimate technique, though he hadn't landed a single hit. Meanwhile, Kim watched confidently from behind. It'll take longer, but it's safer. That crazy old man won't die this way. But Humphrey soon realized he hadn't killed a single monster. His jaw tightened. Are they ignoring me? Kim tried to calm him, but Humphrey roared, before I was a blacksmith, I was a proud warrior. His war cry skill suddenly activated, shaking the entire dungeon. Skeleton soldiers, level 30 and above, awoke and advanced with glowing eyes. Humphrey's skill had triggered them. Kim shouted in fury, "So now we have to fight enemies that wouldn't have attacked. I'm pissed off right now." Goblin hurled a stone with devastating force, instantly killing the skeletons. Hours later, Kim was staggering through the dungeon, drenched in sweat. He had reached level 37. Suddenly, Kim stepped on something with a sharp click. Humphrey's eyes widened in panic. "Dodge it, it's a trap." A golden flash lit up the room as arrows shot through the air. Kim grabbed his goblin and used him as a shield. The arrows shattered harmlessly, but when Kim looked back, Humphrey had been struck in the chest. Blood dripped from his mouth as he gritted his teeth. "You coward. Ditched me to save yourself." Kim's jaw tightened as a system notification appeared. Humphrey's health dropped to 0. The quest failed. Raging, Kim stormed out of the dungeon and into town, screaming, "You crazy blacksmith, you're already dead, but I'll kill you again." From above, a mysterious man was watching, eyes sharp as blades. "Finally found you," he muttered. His voice was low and threatening as he spoke Kim's name with scorn. When Kim arrived at the blacksmith shop, Humphrey insulted him harshly about his gear. Kim smirked, holding up the goblin mockingly, but then Humphrey abruptly changed the subject, thanking him for retrieving his hammer. Kim shouted in disbelief, but a system notification confirmed the quest was complete. Humphrey explained the hammer had dropped earlier from the rat boss, which only made Kim explode with more anger. Inside the shop, Humphrey worked on armor, explaining that sweat determined quality. Yet when he finished, he calmly declared the gear was fine, but wasted on trash like Kim. Kim put on the armor and was stunned. It was his first rare piece, forged from hidden boss raid materials. A system panel confirmed it was blue steel light armor with unique stats. Humphrey refused payment, saying he didn't want disgusting gratitude, but suddenly, PK mode activated. Kim sensed danger. A sword slashed toward him, but he dodged. It was the mysterious man from before. He accused Kim of leaving a young woman half dead. A crowd gathered as the accusations grew louder. Confused, Kim tried to deny it, until the man mentioned Catherine, the girl who had betrayed him in the hidden dungeon. The man coldly declared she was now in a vegetative state. Kim's eyes widened in shock, sweat pouring down as he realized the weight of the situation. The man stepped forward with deadly intent, declaring that it wasn't up to Kim to decide if he was guilty. What mattered was what happened to her, and now the heir to the Semayon group was in jeopardy. He thrust his sword again, but no damage was dealt. The man froze. Kim grinned smugly. The goblin shield had protected him. Holding it high, with two ugly goblin faces snickering in unison, Kim mocked him. The name Semayon Group hit Cheol So Kim like a truck. This wasn't just a company, it was a global empire. Cars, phones, semiconductors. They had their hands in everything, landing a job that was considered a once-in-a-lifetime achievement. And now, here he was, in a hospital room, staring at Catherine, the unconscious daughter of its chairman. She lay still on the bed, an oxygen mask over her face. The man across from him broke the silence, demanding answers. Had Catherine really been attacked by a level 80 monster in a hidden dungeon? Nervously, Kim stammered through an excuse, muttering that it was probably the trauma of total incapacitation. Sweat trickled down his face, but the man pressed harder. How had Kim survived when Catherine Strong and nearly level 40 ended up like this? Kim, who had been level 3 at the time, scrambled for words. He claimed he had changed to a hidden class and barely escaped. Laughing awkwardly, he admitted that she should have been the one to gain that class, not him. Looking at her still body, he thought bitterly, if it were me, I'd already be dead. The man repeated the impossible scenario, a level 3 escaping a level 80. Kim forced another laugh, scratching his head. Then, cautiously, he asked if there was any chance Catherine would recover. The man's eyes flashed with anger, warning him to watch his mouth. Catherine wasn't dead, just unconscious. Even the best doctors didn't understand why she wouldn't wake. All they could do was wait. Kim's expression darkened. So that was it. They would simply wait and hope. Almost hesitantly, he suggested another possibility. Since her injury had happened inside the game, maybe she could be healed there. The man adjusted his glasses, skeptical, but told him to continue. Kim brought up an article he had supposedly read about someone in America who had regained consciousness while logged into Heaven's Gate. He admitted it was a 1 in a million chance, but insisted it was worth trying. Inwardly, he thought, I'm lying to these desperate people. But they lied to me too, outwardly. His fake concern looked so convincing that the man fell into silence, seriously considering the idea. The next day, Catherine's avatar appeared in-game. Her expression was blank, her eyes dull, her body unmoving like a puppet. A goblin nearby laughed mockingly, sticking out its tongue. Cheol Su froze in shock. They actually did it. The chairman gave permission. They logged her in while unconscious. He clenched his teeth. The Semayon group must be truly desperate. If they found out he had lied, he knew he'd disappear without a trace. Yet a crooked smile crept across his face. At least I'll be remembered as the one who tried to save her. In the middle of the city, he leapt up and shouted like a lunatic. Would a giant corporation ignore someone trying this hard to save their hair? If she wakes up, jackpot. If not, I lose nothing. He stepped toward Catherine's blank avatar, muttering that he would pretend to save her for now, even mimicking a sobbing voice. He laughed to himself, hugging his arms. Am I a genius or what? But then came a problem. Catherine's avatar wouldn't move on its own. His eyes fell on the goblin. Soon, Catherine was being dragged along by a rope tied around her neck, pulled by the goblin as if she were a slave. The system forced her to follow as long as she was pulled. Whispers spread quickly. Townspeople watched in disgust. He's making a goblin drag a female player. What trash. I hope he dies, Kim panicked, insisting. It's not what it looks like, but no one believed him. At that moment, a familiar voice called out. Cheol, the old man from before, motioned him to follow. Suspicious, Kim demanded answers but eventually trailed after him. As they walked, he realized Cheol was connected to the Everton Guild. He accused the man of scheming, but Cheol brushed it off, saying his guild only came together for raids, not daily play. Cheol explained more about the Fjordal region. Unlike other areas, raids here weren't on fixed timers, they required certain conditions. He advised Kim to head to Phoenix Elbasar, the royal city where the main questline began. Excited, Kim grabbed his collar and shouted like a madman. The main quest meant everything. But suddenly, Catherine was gone. Panic flooded Kim. If anything happened to her, the Semyon group would destroy him. Two men cornered Catherine's motionless avatar. They mocked her gear, pretending to help, but their leering smiles showed their true intent. Kim searched frantically. His communicator buzzed it was Han Jamin, suspicion heavy in his voice. He demanded to see Catherine's face. Kim dodged the question, cut the call, and ran. Han cursed, but beside him, the chairman remained calm. Catherine, he explained, had lived her life bound by duty. Heaven's Gate was her only freedom. If this was her last experience, so be it. Meanwhile, Kim suddenly remembered a strange skill, goblin throwing. Without hesitation, he hurled his goblin into the air. From above, it spotted Catherine. Kim laughed and rushed toward her. Landing in front of the two men, he declared, I've come to pick her up. We'll be together forever. The duo, calling themselves the Handsome Duo, mocked him. But before they could act, Kim's goblin brutally beat them down, leaving them bloodied and unconscious. Kim erupted in villainous laughter. Serves you right, you bastards! How does it feel to lose to an ugly guy? His manic cackling echoed through the streets, loud enough for the guards to notice. Grabbing Catherine's rope, he dragged her away. But as he turned a corner, his grin faded. His eyes widened in shock. Something unexpected was waiting ahead. Cheol Kim's path was suddenly blocked when a soldier appeared in front of him. With his spear raised, the soldier accused Cheol of murder and kidnapping. Caught off guard, Cheol instinctively raised both hands in surrender. He tried to explain that it was all a misunderstanding, that he had only defended himself, but even to his own ears the excuse sounded weak. Inside, he was already weighing his options. There was only one soldier here, but before that dangerous thought could take hold, a goblin stepped forward with a sly grin. And then, out of nowhere, Old Man appeared, placing a hand on the Cheol shoulder. With a cheerful voice, he pretended he had been looking for him everywhere. Cheol eyes widened. He recognized this man immediately. The old man leaned in and warned him quietly. Killing a god NPC, he explained, would bring consequences beyond anything Cheol could handle. If he wanted to avoid being hunted endlessly by NPCs, he needed to calm down and let him take care of things. Turning to the soldier, the old man spoke politely and thanked him for his service. The old man then used a skill NPC gifting. With a smile, he held out a pouch of gold as an offering, hoping to settle things peacefully. At first, the soldier was stunned by the sheer amount of gold, but the moment quickly turned to fury. Grabbing the old man by the collar, he shouted in rage. Bribing an honest soldier was an insult. What was supposed to raise goodwill had the opposite effect. Their relationship level dropped instantly. Cheol stood frozen in disbelief as the soldier arrested the old man on the spot. Later, Cheol found himself at the gates of the Grand Palace. Frustrated, he argued with the guards, demanding to know why he couldn't enter. The soldier at the gate remained expressionless, repeating the same answer again and again, no. Then, a relaxed voice cut in. He told Cheol not to waste his breath. The door wouldn't be opening anytime soon. Annoyed but curious, Cheol asked who he was. With a laid-back smile, the man pointed at himself and introduced himself as Shin. Cheol eyes flicked to the icon floating above Shin's head, a blinking exclamation mark. He realized instantly this was a quest giver. Shin studied him with unusual intensity before smiling again, pointing out that Cheol must be new, judging from the racket he made at the palace gates. He even complimented Cheol eyes, which left him pulling a strange, unreadable expression. Without warning, Shin pointed directly at him and suggested he prove his worth. There was talk of a lost ruin and a golem, but Cheol had no patience for lengthy NPC speeches. He immediately pulled up his system panel and skipped everything Shin tried to say. Finally, a notification popped up. Main quest, prove your worth. Bring the core of the golem from the lost ruins and prove yourself to Shin. Reward 250 gold. Soon after, Cheol stood inside the dungeon called the Lost Ruin. He cursed under his breath. No one had told him this dungeon was a death trap with sweat dripping. He scanned the fiery landscape, lost ruins. More like lost lives, he muttered. Behind him was Catherine, still his half-slave wife. Cheol calculated carefully. With his maxed agility, crossing would be easy for him alone, but this time, he had to keep her safe. Even if he didn't particularly like her, he couldn't stand the thought of her being harmed. Handing the rope to his goblin, he instructed, "Hold on to this. I'll call you with a symbol." Then he crouched like a sprinter, took a deep breath, and launched himself across the lava. With a perfect leap, he landed on the other side. "Now, Goblin," he shouted, activating his summoner skill. The Goblin jumped and landed clumsily but safe. That left Catherine stranded. The Goblin, still tied to the rope, accidentally yanked her forward. She stumbled dangerously close to the lava's edge. Cheol's eyes went wide. "She's falling in," he shouted. In panic, he ordered the Goblin to pull her. The Goblin obeyed too literally, flinging her across the lava like a rag doll. She crash-landed on the ground in a tangled heap. Cheol's heart sank. He dropped to his knees beside her. "Catherine, wake up. You can't die here. I'm screwed if you do. Please, hold on." But Catherine wasn't hearing him. Inside her unconscious mind, memories resurfaced. Her father stood before her, a golf club in his hands, rage twisting his face. He accused her of staying out with friends, calling them worthless. He mocked her makeup and clothes, snarling that she looked like trash. His words cut deeper than his threats. Catherine sobbed, begging him to stop, crying for her mother to save her. But her mother only hid behind a door, silently walking away. Her father's voice echoed coldly, telling her she was his possession, his only flower, and his flaw. The vision shattered as Cheol's voice pulled her name back into the present. Desperate, he muttered sarcastically to his goblin about performing mouth to mouth, but beneath the joke, his nerves were raw. Looking at her pale, lifeless face, he told himself maybe CPR in this world could still work. Kneeling, he leaned in. But before he could continue, a video call panel flashed before his eyes. It was Catherine's butler. His sharp voice cut through the tension, demanding to know her condition. Cheol panicked, waving his hands, insisting she wasn't dead, but Butler wasn't fooled. He explained calmly that he was logged in and monitoring her vitals in real time. With the best gear equipped, she wouldn't suffer lethal damage unless they entered a hidden dungeon. Cheol felt sudden relief, but Butler's glare sharpened. He promised that if even a single hair on Catherine's head was touched while she was unconscious, he would kill Cheol himself. Before he could say more, Cheol ended the call, smashing the panel in panic. Breathing hard, he turned to the Goblin. "You heard him. We're running straight to the boss room. Let's move." Together they plunged deeper into the ruins. Traps triggered everywhere. At one point, Cheol even rode Catherine's unconscious body like a makeshift skateboard to escape a rolling boulder. By the time they reached the broken bridge, the Goblin threw Catherine across to create a rope line, and they all made it through. Finally, they arrived at the boss room. Standing before them was a massive golem. Cheol, overflowing with chaotic energy, picked Catherine up and hurled her at the monster like a weapon. The golem punched her out of the air, sending her crashing to the ground. Cheol paled instantly. "Oh no, I went too far." Then a notification appeared. Goblin.1. Rage boiling, he shouted, "How dare you attack my anti-trap diffuser Goblin? Finish him." The Goblin charged, laughing wildly, and struck the golem down. Cheol crossed his arms, smirking, until the golem's body began to reform. It stood taller, fiercer than before, lightning crackling around it. Cheol's smirk vanished. Why is it getting bigger? He ordered the Goblin to block instead of killing, but the Goblin tanked a blow head-on and thrown away. Another explosion rocked the dungeon. Cheol dodged debris, thinking fast. Unless he destroyed the core, the golem would keep reviving, but he had no way to find it. As he ran, the golem's massive fist suddenly swung toward Catherine. For a moment, her blank face remained still. Then, deep inside, she relived her past trauma. The terror overwhelmed her until finally, her eyes snapped open. Trembling, she screamed, her voice filled with panic. Catherine had woken. The calm, blank expression Catherine once wore was gone, replaced with pure terror. A loud explosion shook the dungeon as the golem's massive foot slammed into the ground, sending shockwaves through the area. Amid the chaos, Cheol Kim caught sight of that. As he shouted her name, Catherine, the golem rampaged wildly, crushing everything in its path. Cheol heart pounded in panic. In shock, Cheol bit his hand, and beside him, his pet goblin companion mimicked the action. Meanwhile, Catherine struggled to stand, leaning on her staff for support, her breathing rag. She turned toward Cheol, fear in her voice. "What is this? What the hell?" Cheol stared back, surprised, realizing she was awake. Catherine looked at him with wide, teary eyes, confused and disoriented. "Why am I here? Who are you? What's going on?" she cried, gripping her staff tightly. She shouted again, trembling. "A magician like me has an emergency escape skill. Why didn't it work?" "I almost died, you idiot." A sweat formed on Cheol brow. His thoughts raced. "She's really awake. Please don't let her remember what I did." Cheol flashed a dazzling smile. He thought to himself, I just saved the hair of the semi-young group. I'm going to get a massive reward. But Catherine wasn't having it. Didn't I ask you to explain everything? Cheol Su's smile shifted into something sly greedy. He answered smoothly. Yes, of course. After you lost consciousness in the hidden dungeon, I got permission from the chairman to take care of you with all my heart. And then you woke up. Before he could finish, a massive fist slammed into him, sending him flying into the ground. Groaning, Cheol Su shouted, Why didn't you tell me a punch was coming? But Catherine wasn't listening. She was frozen in horror, staring at the golem before suddenly bolting away in fear. Watching her run, Cheol Su muttered bitterly. She ran off to save herself. What a scumbag. A tear streamed down Catherine's face as she ran, muttering again and again, I'm scared. Dad knows I used Heaven's Door. He might kill me. Outside the game, her real body trembled violently. Doctors rushed to stabilize her, alarm on their faces. A butler ran over, asking urgently, did she wake up? Yes, one doctor replied, but something has gone terribly wrong inside the game. She's extremely frightened. The butler clenched his teeth, fury in his eyes. That bastard Cheol Su. What did he do to her? He demanded to know if they could force her to log out, but the doctors refused. It was too dangerous. Forced disconnection could be fatal. With no choice left, the butler made a decision. He would personally go in to confirm the situation. Back in the dungeon, the golem launched a rock missile at Catherine. She screamed in terror, but just before it struck, Cheol Su's goblin companion smashed it midair. Dust filled the area, and Cheol Su scolded Catherine, saying she couldn't outrun a monster like this. But Catherine collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm scared. Cheol Su grew frustrated. What's wrong with her? I'll have to knock her out. He signaled to the goblin, who crept behind Catherine, ready to strike. But before he gave the command, Catherine looked up at him through her tears. Help me, please. I don't care how. Drag me out. Kill everyone if you have to. Just get me away from the semi-young group. From my father, my mother, all of them. Just take me out. Her words stunned Cheol Su. Sweat trickled down his face. She wasn't afraid of dying. She was terrified of her own family. Then a call came in. It was the butler, his voice furious. Cheol Su, you bastard. Show me Miss Catherine right now. Cheol Su sighed, irritated. He lifted Catherine's face to the camera, forcing a smile onto her. See? She's fine. Business is about trust, isn't it? I'm not kidnapping her. I'm helping her recover. But the butler wasn't convinced. Looking closely, he realized Catherine wasn't even conscious. Her earlier outbursts were seizures. With cold resolve, he said, We're ending this arrangement. I'm taking her back. The call cut out. Cheol Su's expression twisted in anger. Sorry, but I can't let you pull out now. Turning back to Catherine, he demanded money. But she whispered tearfully, that was a lie. His anger boiled. But then Catherine promised to give him all her expensive gear if he kept her secret. Cheol Su almost dismissed it until she shouted, 100 billion. The number stopped him cold. His expression brightened instantly. Time to work. But before he could act, the golem reappeared. Bigger, stronger, now with 4 arms. Its level had risen to 178. One hit would mean instant death. Cheol Su cursed his goblin for failing to stall it. They ran for the exit, but Catherine fell. Her robe caught on a rock. The golem loomed over her, ready to crush her. Cheol Su froze. Last time, I ran because I was weak. But now yet, even with that thought, he kept running for the door, muttering bitterly, Doctors will save you, but no one will save me if I die. Catherine lay on the ground, tears streaming, whispering, No one ever saved me. The golem raised its massive fist to kill her, but suddenly, a golden blade slashed down, stopping the attack. A figure landed between Catherine and the monster. Cheol Su turned, stunned. The mysterious NPC, Shin, smiled at him. Now it's my turn to take care of the rest. Cheol Su Kim stared at the NPC standing before him. He reflected on how artificial creatures in the game were designed. Some were intentionally programmed to lose under specific circumstances. That's when the game would shift into a cinematic cutscene, where the NPC would step in and dominate the enemy, showcasing their strength to move the story forward. Cheol Su recalled when the golem struck him earlier. Oddly, it hadn't caused any pain. He reasoned this must have been a safety feature built into the system to prevent unintended injuries during these scenes. The NPC stepped forward with determination, sword in hand, shouting in anger at the golem for daring to attack his subordinate. The NPC lunged at the golem with confidence, but the moment the monster landed a hit, he was sent flying into a wall. Cheol Su froze in confusion, yet the NPC stood back up, brushed off the blow, and claimed it wasn't even a proper warm-up. Baffled, Cheol Su watched as the man charged again, only to be knocked flat to the ground. Still, lying there, he repeated the same boastful line, that this wasn't even worth a warm-up. Panic set in. Cheol Su shouted, reminding the NPC that he was only level 70. He did the quick math in his head. Normally, players who reached this quest would be around level 30 or 40. It would usually overwhelm them completely. That's when the story introduced a high-level NPC to defeat it, creating a dramatic moment for the player. But now things were completely different. Cheol Su realized that no ordinary player could have pushed the golem to level 170. This entire scenario had gone far beyond the intended conditions. The NPC stood up again, sword ready, repeating the same warm up line, but his words sounded stuck, like he was trapped in a loop. The cutscene clearly wasn't working properly. This NPC was supposed to end the quest. As long as the golem wasn't destroyed, the event couldn't conclude. As the NPC charged the golem again, Cheol speculated that the moment this character appeared, the golem's core must have also activated within the story. He was still analysing the situation when a rock flew through the air, smashing into the golem's weak point. Cheol followed the direction of the throw. It was the goblin. The rock had struck the exact spot the NPC had been aiming for. Instantly, the golem crumbled to pieces. The NPC stood proudly beside Cheol, repeating his boast that the fight wasn't even a warm-up, and claiming that without him, everyone would have been dead. Cheol stared at the fallen golem and wondered if this was really the end. Cheol eyes drifted toward Catherine. He repeated the word in his mind, safe, as if questioning whether that was really true. Later, the group emerged from the dungeon. Cheol held his head in embarrassment, overwhelmed by how awkward everything had become. The NPC, marching proudly at the front, declared that he had judged Cheol correctly. Surviving the dungeon alone proved his strength. Now, he said, things could get serious. Cheol groaned internally, realizing the man had just made him look even worse. The NPC continued, boasting that the vice-captain of the Royal Knights, Alphon, was personally acquainted with them. He warned not to ask questions about his circumstances. With a wide smile, the NPC cheerfully announced that they would see each other again. With that eccentric remark, he strode off, acting as if nothing unusual had happened. Cheol muttered in disbelief that the man was seriously not right in the head. Turning to Catherine, he awkwardly bowed and apologized for his behavior, admitting it was his fault. Before she could respond, a voice called out from behind them, addressing Catherine directly. The man who appeared wore top-grade equipment, unlike anything Cheol had seen. His presence alone radiated power. Cheol wondered if he was simply wealthy or truly skilled. But either way, this wasn't someone to cross lightly. Catherine's expression shifted to horror. Her eyes widened as she whispered that the man was her father. It was Chairman Jim Han. The chairman smiled warmly, saying he had known she woke up the moment she had her game seizure. He admitted he had worried about her day and night, then gently scolded her for being reckless. Turning to Cheol he thanked him for caring for his daughter, promising that the staff would see he was properly rewarded. Looking back at Catherine, he asked if they should go together. Cheol froze. Inside, he cursed himself as trash. He watched Catherine walk away with her father, but his heart screamed. He wished she would stop, scold him, say anything. Like before when she had begged for help, he imagined himself stepping forward, grabbing her hand, confronting the chairman and demanding she come with him. But it was only in his head. In reality, he stood motionless, watching her leave. He told himself bitterly that he was nothing but a coward who broke promises. He belonged with the goblin, and he didn't deserve more. Just then, whispers spread through the crowd. People recognized Jim Han, not only as the Samyong group chairman, but also as one of the legendary trio who cleared the Duke's great archive. Players gathered around him in awe, asking for screenshots, praising him as the Night King, Han Kamoon. He waved casually, keeping his image intact. When someone asked who the woman beside him was, he chuckled and claimed she was just a party member he happened to meet. His words were cold, directed only at Catherine. He warned her to remember how the world saw him and how they would see her. If anyone discovered he had a daughter like her, his reputation would crumble. Cheol stood silently, his guilt heavy. He tried to convince himself that Catherine's life couldn't be worse than his own. He had received his reward. This was the end of his part. But then, Sangreal appeared from hiding, ragged and disheveled. He explained that Catherine's injuries weren't normal. In this world, the body couldn't bruise or swell from in-game pain. But Catherine's body clearly bore signs of real abuse. The truth froze Cheol in place. Something inside him snapped. He shouted at the chairman in fury, accusing him of kidnapping someone in broad daylight. The crowd gasped. Han Ki-moon smiled calmly, brushing it off as a misunderstanding, but Cheol mocked his fake politeness, even claiming Catherine was his girlfriend. His outrageous words left the crowd stunned, and Catherine horrified. Whispers spread, doubt growing. The chairman's mask slipped as his rage surfaced. He accused Cheol, Catherine, and even the butler of conspiring against him, declaring himself the embodiment of Samyong group. Golden energy erupted around him. Han Ki-moon drew his sword, activating PvP mode, ready to strike down Cheol Catherine, but just as he was about to attack, a figure clad in armor suddenly appeared and smashed him in the face with overwhelming force. The blow launched Han Ki-moon like a ragdoll straight into a wall. The timing of the strike was perfect. Cheol Kim, stunned by the sudden rescue, and silently appreciated the save. The one who had intervened was Gob, his summoned goblin. But before Cheol could process it, Gob turned toward him and charged at high speed. Panic hit instantly. If anyone realized that he was allied with a goblin, It would destroy everything. Thinking fast, Cheol activated his Goblin Summoner skill and flung Gob into the air, pretending he was pushing him away. To the crowd, it looked as if he was under attack. Playing along, he shouted dramatically and feigned confusion. The audience whispered in disbelief. To them, the Night King had been struck down in a single blow. Amid the chaos, Catherine collapsed to her knees. Cheol approached, trying to pull her up and urging her to stay strong, but Catherine pulled away, overwhelmed and questioning why he was even helping her. Instead of comforting her, Cheol smirked darkly and tightened his grip on her chin. He warned her that expecting heroes was foolish, because someone like him was all she had left. Locking eyes with her, he demanded that she open her eyes and face reality. Through her tears, Catherine turned and saw her father, bloodied and defeated on the ground. Cheol pressed harder, telling her this was her second chance. Her abusive father had finally paid for his crimes. She needed to seize the opportunity, because predators were already circling. If she didn't act, she would be devoured next. Then, shifting into another performance, Cheol shouted to the crowd that there had been a mistake. Catherine wasn't his girlfriend after all. Acting embarrassed, he joked that he needed to rush home, because he had left the stove on, then fled the scene before anyone could stop him. As he disappeared, an older bald man in a sharp black suit stepped forward, offering Catherine his hand. He encouraged her to speak if she had something to say. Catherine steadied herself, took a deep breath, and revealed the truth. She confessed to being Han Ki-moon's daughter, and exposed the years of abuse she had suffered. At first, some doubted her, but she backed every claim with proof on her social media. Once the evidence was out, the truth spread like wildfire. The scandal devastated the Semyon group. Their stock value collapsed, and reports surfaced that Chairman Han had suddenly fallen ill. Cheol doubted it, believing he was faking sickness to escape the media storm. Later, Cheol met the bald old man in a restaurant. Exhausted and paranoid, he shouted that he couldn't sleep, fearing for his life. Calmly, the man explained that the fight between Cheol and Han Ki-moon had gone viral. If anything happened to Cheol now, the public would blame Han immediately. That protection, the old man reasoned, was stronger than any bodyguard, but Cheol wasn't convinced. He cried out in frustration, regretting everything. He hadn't been paid for his troubles, and standing against a megacorporation felt like a mistake. The old man tried to reassure him, saying what he had done carried value beyond money. Cheol scoffed, saying he'd rather trust a booger than his words. Their exchange ended with the old man being dragged away by a soldier. Not long after, Catherine's butler appeared. At first, Cheol mocked him as a lapdog of the Semyon group, but the butler corrected him sharply. Then, in a rare moment of sincerity, the butler thanked him for saving Catherine. Despite serving her for years, he admitted he hadn't realized the suffering she endured. Cheol unmoved, demanded to know if the gratitude came with money. The butler ignored his arrogance and revealed that he had been dismissed from the Semyon group without severance. He was no longer affiliated with them, having left after seeing their corruption firsthand. Still, he admitted that many were worried about Catherine's safety now that she had gone public. Then, with pride, the butler motioned to Catherine, who appeared on a live stream. He had used his savings to build her a safe studio, making her a public figure whose constant visibility would protect her. As Catherine smiled and interacted with viewers, the butler explained that as long as she streamed daily, no one would dare harm her. If she ever disappeared, the world would notice. The butler, with a soft smile, said it wasn't too late for Catherine to live the life she deserved, and it was all thanks to Cheol Kim. Embarrassed, Cheol brushed it off, jokingly demanding money instead. The butler calmly said Catherine had already sent him something through the in-game mailbox before ending the call. When Cheol retrieved it, the NPC Rachel delivered a cursed weapon, the Bloodworm Whip. Its description warned of random effects that could even drive his minions berserk. Horrified, Cheol cursed Catherine's name, furious that she had complicated his life again. Soon after, the smug NPC who had given him the Golem quest appeared with a new mission: exterminate a goblin village. Cheol's eyes narrowed. He activated his Goblin Summoner skill and demanded he repeat the order. Calmly, the NPC did. Eliminate the goblins harassing villagers. Turning to Gob Cheol Su admitted this was the confrontation they could no longer avoid, but when he looked closer, he saw the goblin snort at him. Later, while travelling in a cart, Cheol tried to mend things with Gob, but the goblin ignored him, slapped his hand away, and acted indifferent. Frustrated, Cheol lashed out, calling him useless. A memory surfaced in his mind. Someone once told him one-sided relationships don't last. He tried to shake it off, but just then Gob froze, staring into the distance. Cheol followed his gaze and saw something impossible. Another goblin had appeared, one he had never seen before. He panicked and shouted to kill it. A loud explosion erupted behind the cart, sending everyone into alarm. Still focused on the goblin, Cheol watched in frustration as his summoned companion, Gob, missed his strike. Furious, Cheol yelled at him, pointing out that the enemy was still alive. Suddenly, the goblin leapt onto him and latched onto his face, clawing wildly. Cheol shouted desperately for his summon to help, trying to pry the goblin off. In the chaos, Gob prepared to unleash a powerful attack. Cheol panicked even more, yelling at him not to go overboard, or he might get caught in the blast. Meanwhile, one of the carriage NPCs appeared, armed with a gun, demanding to know what was happening. Cheol explained quickly that a goblin had ambushed them. The NPC confirmed it really was a goblin, assuming the attack meant they were close to a goblin village. Calmly, he told Cheol to stay still, saying he would kill it in one shot. But in a shocking twist, the NPC accidentally shot Cheol instead of the goblin. Stunned and wounded, Cheol collapsed, crying out in disbelief that he had been the one shot instead of the monster. As he lay there, Cheol demanded to know why the goblins were after him. Then, to his surprise, the goblin that attacked him started crying. Through tears, the creature begged for help. Cheol froze in shock as the goblin spoke, explaining that he thought one of his fellow goblins had been captured and rushed in to save them. He never intended to hurt anyone. Cheol was speechless, a talking goblin, unable to process the revelation. Later, as the cart moved deeper into the forest, Cheol sat inside. He annoyed and unsettled. He wondered aloud if being a goblin summoner gave him the ability to understand goblins, sarcastically questioning if he was becoming one himself. The captured goblin, now tied up and dragged along, pleaded again for mercy. He insisted he had only come to save his kin. Ignoring his pleas, Cheol scolded him for biting his head earlier. Then, with a dark expression, he declared that he would wipe out the entire goblin village himself. Eventually, the cart stopped. The NPC informed Cheol they had arrived at the path leading to the goblin village, but refused to go further, running away to avoid trouble. Left alone, Cheol kept the talking goblin alive, realizing he might prove useful for navigating traps inside the village. But the goblin pleaded again, saying if someone had to die, let it be him. He insisted the others were innocent, claiming that just like humans instinctively protect each other, he only acted out of instinct to protect his own. His expression turning devilish. Terrified, the goblin shouted that goblins didn't hate humans. He claimed it was humans who always attacked them, demanding to know why Cheol came to their home just to cause suffering. Cheol froze. The truth struck him. He had never had a personal grudge against goblins. He had simply killed them because the quest demanded it, assuming they were evil. For the first time, he questioned whether he was the real monster, but he quickly brushed off the thought, muttering that no one would care if a goblin died anyway. Suddenly, two goblins appeared ahead. They called out, revealing that the captive goblin was their family. Immediately, the captured goblin shouted for them to run, willing to sacrifice himself. But Cheol gave a cold order to Gob, commanding him to throw a rock. The captive broke free and rushed to shield his family, taking the hit himself. Cheol was struck by the selflessness. Unlike some humans who would sacrifice their own children, this goblin risked everything to protect his wife and child, watching them cry and embrace. Cheol admitted to himself that he couldn't see them as evil. Soon after, they arrived at the goblin village. The goblins inside tensed at the sight of a human, but strangely, their faces showed no hostility. Some even teased the new goblin, calling him ugly. Cheol was irritated, but the talking goblin assured him no one would think he was human anyway. Frustrated, Cheol muttered he should have killed him earlier. Still, the goblin insisted on inviting him to eat, saying it would be shameful not to. Cheol sat in front of a steaming bowl of soup, only to realize it was labeled goblin poisoned soup. As he hesitated, children bumped into him, spilling the soup all over his face and dealing damage. The goblins laughed harder while Cheol fumed. Nearby, an elder asked how a human and goblin ended up traveling together, noting it was rare. Cheol bluntly clarified they weren't friends. Still, the goblin admitted he envied Cheol, saying that if he could travel with an adventurer, he'd be the most successful goblin ever. Watching the village, Cheol reflected that goblins were stuck in low-level dungeons, unable to escape. For a moment, he even admitted that the goblin was better than him in many ways, but just as things grew calm, another goblin attempted a sneak attack. Due to Cheol high agility, the strike failed. At that same moment, a cockroach scurried across the table, startling him. As he panicked, Gob threw a rock that accidentally killed the hidden attacker instead of the insect. Another goblin tried to ambush him, but again, Cheol reflexes killed the goblin instead of the cockroach. The goblins grew uneasy. Sweating nervously as Cheol realized the situation had become too serious. He decided to leave, thinking that goblins were far better creatures than humans gave them credit for. He regretted not saying goodbye to the children, but prepared to move on, still not knowing that it was ambushed by the goblins. Just then, another player appeared. Without hesitation, the man killed a goblin in front of him and smirked. Resting his sword on his shoulder, he looked at Cheol and said he knew he'd be here. With a grin, he added that he had found one more goblin.